somos unos fieles fans de Pixelatl. Creemos que es uno de los mejores espacios, sin duda, ahorita en México para las industrias creativas. ¿Qué expectativas tengo? Las que siempre tengo con ellos. La realidad es que cada año se superan, cada año traen a más luminarias y gente de las diversas industrias, y pues simplemente es un espacio que está configurado para poder ser íntimo, suena chistoso, ¿no? Pero un espacio para ser íntimo con las diferentes personas que participan en la expo hacia el público. Entonces, a todos los que estamos en la industria, todos los que se dedican a esto, sin duda tienen que participar al menos una vez en la vida.
Que le puedan dar oportunidades a empresas jóvenes como nosotros, creo que es muy importante para que todos estemos dándonos a conocer y que nuestro trabajo esté representado con su apoyo.
Queremos encontrar a alguien con que pueda coproducir con nosotros o algún medio de distribución que le interese producir nuestra serie.
La verdad esperemos que sea una experiencia inolvidable, porque este tipo de festivales nos van a servir mucho para alimentarnos nosotros mismos.
De manera muy personal creo que Pixelatl es en su campo el proyecto más avanzado que existe en cuanto a reunir talento, industria y capacitación en el área específica de animación. O sea, creo que es lo mejor que hay en nuestro país.
Es un festival realmente muy completo, y estamos muy agradecidos con el festival y con Ciudad Digital por darnos esta oportunidad de mostrar lo que hacemos, ¿no? Y lo que podría hacer.
Para mí es un honor saber que Jalisco está participando fuertemente y que va toda una delegación de Jalisco. Es importantísimo, si estás escuchando esto y estás en Jalisco, que sepas que es el mejor estado para estar en industrias creativas. Y tienes que estar participando en esto. Venos a nosotros, tan solo somos una muestrita de los estudios que estamos aquí y que van a participar. También si eres un estudio de cualquier otro estado, vengan también. Súper vale la pena, ¿no?
Buenas noches, Pixelatl. Thank you so much for welcoming us back from Walt Disney Animation Studios. We are thrilled to be here with you all this evening. Earlier this week, you heard from our colleagues Erica Becerra, Leticia, Travis, and Huicho. So we hope that you learned a lot from those presentations and some tips and tricks for reels and resumes. And tonight, I am very honored to be here with these wonderful gentlemen to share with you some wonderful, wonderful stories and share with you a little bit about storytelling and inspiration. So my name is Nicole Dial, and I'll be moderating this conversation with these fine gentlemen in our pre-quarantine haircuts. So, as you may know, our studio, Walt Disney Animation Studios, is located in Burbank, California, right outside of Los Angeles. And this fabulous photo with everyone together was taken in October of 2019. And now we work all over Los Angeles. We're turning 97 years old this year. That's a lot of candles to put on a birthday cake. And we are currently working on our 59th feature film. We can't wait for you to be able to see, and for the world to be able to see, Raya and the Last Dragon, which will be debuting in March 2021. So I'm going to turn it over now to Mark to introduce himself and tell you a little bit about his journey.
Alrighty, thank you, Nicole. Buenas noches, Pixelato. How's everybody tonight? I hope well. Sorry, we can't see you, but we know you're out there, so we're glad you're tuned in. This particular slide that we have up on the screen just is a sampling of the part of my career. I've worked on in excess of 22 feature films and a variety of shorts, and this is my 40th year with the studio. So when Nicole said that we're working on our 59th feature film, I'm happy to say that I've had the opportunity to work on almost a third of that productivity in those films. So it's been a real honor. Anyway, so yes, let's move on to the next slide here. Let's see, what do we have here? Yes. This is just some sampling of some things that you might know or might not know. It's things that I've worked on. These are a variety of things that I've animated from Simba there. There's some previs, some character design in the middle, some Princess and the Frog designs early on. Mickey Mouse there at the bottom, Mickey's Christmas Carol, was the very first animation that I did for the studio. So I've always considered that a real honor that when I started at the studio and my first assignment as an animator was to animate Mickey Mouse for Mickey's Christmas Carol. And that was a real treat, and still is a very, very fond memory for me. And let's move on here. Yes. Well, around the studio, I don't necessarily have a nickname per se, but I'm kind of known as the princess guy around the studio. I've had the opportunity to animate a lot of our leading ladies in my generation. I think I've accounted for, 6 of our leading ladies. And this is just a sampling of some of those. You've got, again, Mulan up there in the corner, and Jasmine and Belle and Tiana, and Jasmine with Aladdin there. So these are just some of my animation roughs. And again, that's a real honor, because Cinderella for me personally was a very influential film, and I actually had the opportunity to work with one of the animators who helped bring Cinderella to life, in Eric Larson, who was the animator for that. And here's a good shot of the 9 Old Men, which again, when I started, Frank and Ollie had just retired and were working on their book, animation, Disney animation. And Eric Larson was my mentor. I had the privilege to get to know not only Eric, but at least 6 of the 9 Old Men, and that was a real treat. But Eric was the biggest influence on most of my generation. He was in charge of the training program at the time, and you'd spend 4 weeks, do a test. If you got approved, you came back, did another 4 weeks, another pencil test, and if you were approved, so after 8 weeks of working under Eric's training program, then if you passed that, then you got to go into production. And I was very blessed to get picked up. I started in Glenn Keane's unit and on the Fox and the Hound, so that was my very first feature film. And as an assistant, and then once I got my promotion to animator about a year later, I was then given the assignment to animate Mickey Mouse. So what's really interesting, though, is as I look at these pictures, particularly with Eric and the 9 Old Men, as I said, I've been with the company now 40 years, and I'm almost about the same age that they were when I started, and I'm kind of finding myself now in my career in the same kind of mentorship role. A lot of what I do day in and day out is working with our fabulously talented young animators. And I'd like to introduce one of those now. And Mr. Jorge, take it away.
Mark, hermano. Thank you, gracias. Hello, Pixelato. Thank you so much for having us, for giving us a seat in the conversation. Again, Mark, sensei, office mate, well, not office mate, but neighbor in the studio. I miss to see you every day, from breakfast to late, and this is super cool. This is the posters and some images of the stories that I'm being very honored to be part of. And like Mark was showing, that much legacy, that kind of torch passing, that Mark was showing all those different colors and stories and technologies and technique. Then you see that in those posters as well. And you can see the stories and the legacy, the diversity, which is great, that I love. All the different mediums, the technology takes a huge part of it, and Mark has seen it because a lot of these posters overlap. Because Mark and I would work in movies together, a lot of them. And I'm Jorge Ernesto Ruizcano. I'm a storyteller. I'm an animator at Walt Disney Animation Studios, and I'm from Venezuela. Yeah, I am from Venezuela. I'm from the Caribbean. I'm Latino, español, claro que sí. Desde más venezolano que la arepa, porque bueno, toda mi familia está ahí, and I always go there every year. Sorry, Mark, I'm more Venezuelan than the arepa. I'm just saying that I'm really proud. But you know that, Mark.
I know that.
So, well, my point is that this is really cool, and why we're putting that in the map, and it's because, you know, I think a lot of people that are listening to this can relate to the journey a lot, to kind of where we're being. I took it as an impossible task. Also, it's a different generation, so it's a different stories that we're talking today. But I was gonna be a lawyer. I love law and justice, so I was gonna be a lawyer. I was naive. I was young. But then I came to the United States to learn English and ended up going to school because, you know, I got a lot of support, like love, and, you know, I got in, you know, here and there, depth and whatever, but I got a lot of education, the Academy of Art, University, and the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale. I got my bachelor's and the master's in San Francisco in the Academy of Art University. And this is like, till I got to Disney, yeah, after a couple other studios, which make me really chameleonic, for different cultures, talking about different cultures and of teams. I went through, to kind of take it back, through the talent development program. That's how I went to the Walt Disney Animation Studios. And that's the program, which, if I'm not mistaken, Mark, which is the apprenticeship program, which is Walt pretty much started this, and which was like torch kind of passing, you know, which is kind of great, just to throw that definition in there with Mark in this window. You know, I'm just gonna do it, you know. And if you maybe go to the next slide, I just don't want to get too hang on the journey. We can talk about it all you want, but this is a little bit of just to show how I grew up with all these different experiences, with all this different life, you know, with this curiosity, that discipline and tenacity took me to where I am in the studio, and that's what the studio looks for when you see the people around you. And looking ahead, looking at innovation, talking about all again, it's technology and art, it's hand in hand, it's brush and paper and drawing, but innovation, talking about future and inspiration, you know, because I don't want to take too much of me talking. I want to see maybe the questions, and we want to, there you go, what's next, what's the future?
Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Mark, for sharing a little bit about your journeys, how you got to Walt Disney Animation Studios, and especially how both of you got started through the apprentice program. It's just wonderful when, Jorge, you mentioned the passing of the torch, right? We're continuing to do that year after year with new animation trainees coming in and stretching their wings in our studio. So like I mentioned, we're gonna have a conversation, and we're going to leave some time to answer some questions from the audience as well. So I'll kick things off to Mark and Jorge, just for you to share a little bit more about your process. And so I'd love for you to share with our audience tonight what your process is for understanding and relating to your characters in order to bring out the best performance.
Well, I'll go ahead and start with that. For me, it's a very personal thing, like most art is, an artist. It's a very personal thing, and my process is to, as much as I can, immerse myself in the story, learn as much as I can about the characters that I'm assigned to, understand their role in the film, and just, you know, basically put myself in their shoes. I try very hard to make it as personal as I can, and I imagine for myself, I'm constantly thinking, you know, how would I feel if I was them in this particular situation? Because that's what's really, you know, has been paramount at Disney for, you know, almost 100 years now, is, you know, these characters are believable. They're not necessarily, we talk about this at work. It's a matter of believability versus reality. I mean, we don't do real characters, but we make characters that are very believable, and you believe in their situations, and you believe in their feelings and emotions, and that's what makes our stories so strong. And so I think, what's so exciting is when you have people coming to the studio with, a variety of worldviews, you're going to get really rich, insights for a lot of these characters. So like Jorge said, he grew up, in a completely different world than I grew up in, but yet we both have the same passion to make sure that the characters that we're creating for these films are believable and that the audiences can identify with. There's something to those characters that an audience can hook onto, and that's very valuable, and that's what we try to do. That's what I've been trying to pass on to people like Jorge and his generation. That's a big part of my job now.
Yes, I'm like taking notes. I don't know if you heard. Still, that's very true, and I'm all that Mark said, because I also that believability, which I always have a tough time saying it, that I preach that a lot, and that's from Mark. Like that term is being like played a lot in all the philosophies within the studio. Even before Mark, but Mark is like, and it's an awesome, it's pushes stylized reality. I love it. And to go back to the question, Mark, goal, it's research, I believe, for me, like, which is the same as research. And for me, and I can speak from my opinion, is that it's my favorite. One of my favorite parts is the research and study and how it's my role. It's part of my job. It's part of my role as an animator, storyteller. I need to go and get to know this culture, which is great, which is part of, again, with the curiosity and observation. It's part of my thing, of my passion. So it's a pleasure. So it's one of my favorite parts, So you at least know what to do, what not to do a little sooner, or you have a little more uneducated, educated, ignorant, depending how detached you are from the world that we're inspired by, or something. But it's just that. It's rich. Oh, and it's me trying to also, which it comes from research, trying to find, even if it's so different from where it's where I'm from or where I live every day. I always try to find what I have in common. So again, to go back to what Mark's saying, really, in other words, really, what I have in common. And for example, what we're doing right now. Well, I don't want to talk too much about that, but yeah, this Moana, for example. I'm like, I didn't know anything about cruising and navigating, but the stars and the wind and all this mystical. I was like going through it in the mythology, but yeah, just to give more examples, research. Yeah.
Thank you.
Kind of like two sides of the coin, that passion of the artist, and then the research, is helps feed into that believability of the characters and the situations. So it's kind of what we say in America here is two sides of the same coin.
Yeah, and it's a great marriage between the two to bring forth that humanity, that you're talking about through the believability of those characters that you're bringing to life. So riffing off of that a little bit, talking a little bit more about process. Now, can you share with us a little bit more about the collaboration between an animator and a cleanup artist?
You want to start, Jorge?
I will always want you to start, Mark, but really, maybe to change things up. Yeah, it's for me is it's a dance of kind of getting to the render to whatever's going to be of the image at the end, because the animator goes a lot with the performance, the movement, but then there's the line and the render. So it used to be maybe cleanup artists as I go into a cleaner line, more model, And nowadays it might be some tech animation or technical animators, which will go with the cloth, but they go very much. We have Alex, which is a traditional animator too, but there's a lot of traditional animation influence in kind of iterations, because of the shapes and stuff like that. But yeah, it's just another step to getting a cleaner and a more appealing render of the final. But please, Mark.
Yeah. No, it's a good question, and it's evolved over the years. As far as the bulk of my career has been as a hand-drawn animator, as a traditional animator, and so having a relationship with a cleanup artist is incredibly vital. And I've worked with some fabulous, incredibly talented people and artists over the course of my year, and you're kind of, you're a team, and it's, from a traditional point of view, it frees me up as an animator to just focus on the performance and not worry about a lot of the details. And that's not too dissimilar to the way it is in CG. If you see, the CG rigs are kind of like stripped down to their underwear, and then it goes to tech anim and they worry about the cloth and the hair and all those kind of things. It's basically the same idea with a traditional cleanup artist. In a lot of cases, it depends on the animator. Some animators love, the control aspect. But I have, tremendous respect for my cleanup artists and my assistants, because oftentimes they're, a better artist, a better draftsman than I am. And so, I'm freed up to just focus on the performance of the character, and then they're there to take that and really refine it with making that final drawing that, which really just kind of sweetens everything and, takes it to the next level. And, I couldn't do it without them. It's just, we can't. And same with our tech anim artists today. They're incredibly valuable. And, so I can't say enough good, about our tech anim people and our, cleanup and assistant artists. But, it's all about a relationship, really. And kind of, and it gets to the point, like Rachel has been my assistant for, I don't know, better part of 20, 25 years. And, it gets to the point where you don't even have to communicate. She knows me, she knows my drawings so well that I can just pretty much just hand her my roughs and she knows what to do with them. She trusts me, I trust her. And there's a big trust factor in the relationship. So, good.
Just before, if I can say yes, and I'm having that today and yesterday in the meetings, and the people that have done shots before with the tech anims, it's a trust, and it's like a dance that if you danced it before, it's because we do a lot of traditional like drawings on top of our drawings because of our polygons, it's all data, and sometimes they can go and maneuver all that shape, and I always end up like collaborating with them. It's way easier than just trying to just only you getting all these shapes in there. So yeah, it's.
You both touched on something that I think is a great segue to what I want to dive into next, which is relationship, and that relationship that you have as an animator